Hi, this is Gia Marone, president of Women Grow, and it's an honor that we're celebrating this month Asian American Native Hawaiian Pacific Islanders Heritage Month. This month, we'll be showcasing incredible women in our industry as they present to you their businesses, and we're asking you to show them support by following them and even support their business. Thank you so much for tuning in, and stay tuned.
Hello, welcome to Women Grow, and thank you, Gina, and thank you, Tanya, for having us on here. Gia is amazing, and she is spearheading Women Grow into a new path and new places, and increased welcoming the new women coming into cannabis. I am so happy to have you all here, and I would love to introduce my fellow Asian American women in cannabis. I'd like to bring them on and introduce each one of them. So let's begin, Tanya. Let's get all the girls online here. Hello.
Hi.
And
hi.
I have the amazing Angela Cheng. I'm going to read this because I always get it wrong. I always give her extra jobs. And she goes, Ophelia, I don't do that. But I say, Angela, you can. So she is a senior VP of marketing communication for Paxstone. And then I also have the wonderful Angela Pye, who came to this industry through my favorite, and I'm wearing, in honor of her, a Halston top. She came into the business through Pop and Barkley and then Canacraft, and soon, we can't talk about it yet, but other great things. Then we have Christina Wong, my heart, and I allow her to clog my arteries because her food is the best. I will take that risk. And we also have a very special day today. It is Angela Pye's birthday. So happy birthday!
Woo! Happy birthday, Angela.
She looks 12, but she's got the brain of a goddess who's been running the world forever. So let's start off with, yes, we're celebrating Asian American Pacific Islander Month and everyone involved in that. But however, I feel that every month is our month, right? And every month should be everyone's month, that we celebrate everyone's culture. I'm just throwing treats because my dogs are coming close to me. So what we have here, 3 completely amazing women that I have the honor to have met through cannabis and through Asian Americans for Cannabis Education. That was started in 2015, and to bring all of us together. And what benefits cannabis has brought us. I mean, not only is it a great plant, but look at what we have here. So I would like to start with Angela Cheng, who is very dear to me, as everyone else down here. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself? I know how amazing you are, so don't get cheap on the words there.
Okay. Thank you for having me on the show, Ophelia and Women Grow. Really, really happy and excited to be here. A little bit about my background is I'm an immigrant, was born in Hong Kong, grew up in Vancouver, Canada, and really entered the vice industry early on. So my background is in wine and spirits marketing, and I spent a lot of time working at ad agencies in New York and also working in Miami at Bacardi before I entered cannabis. So I currently head up marketing at Pacific Stone, which is a very large cannabis brand in beautiful Carpinteria, California. We grow on over 23 acres of greenhouse grow, and we're the #1 flower brand in California, which hypothetically you could say the world, because California is one of the largest markets. So super excited to be here. I'm happy to be amongst such great company, and yeah, that's a little bit more about my background. But I mean, I would say that when I started off in marketing, it was really interesting because I was very shy, and I was always taught to listen to my elders. So I would often not speak up, and a lot has changed, I would say, in the last 20 plus years.
Well, girl, not only are you that, you're also my style icon.
Thanks.
So it's like, what is Angela going to wear to that event? Gosh darn it, I'm going to have to squeeze my feet into those stilettos just to compete with her. So, anyways, she's an amazing woman. I'm really happy we're going to get to know more about her during this hour. Next, let's go to, we're going to do AACE. So that way we're going to get Christina, who not only is, oh my gosh, her creations, you got to follow her Instagram, because every time I look at it, I gain weight. It is beautiful, her cakes, her pastries, but also just the way she puts things together that you kind of think, what? Okay, that's amazing. And every time she talks about dropping off cookies, I kind of look at her and think, I look at my door and go, okay. Then I look at her Instagram and lick it, and then I'm fine. So, Christina, tell us about how amazing you are, because I already know it, but let's let everyone else know.
Oh, thank you, Ophelia, for that warm intro. So, hi, everyone. I'm Christina with Fruit and Flower, and I like to say that I'm a baked baker, a culinary catnip artist, since Instagram doesn't like it when we say the word cannabis, or any social media channel, really. But I make really beautiful infused desserts and culinary cannabis creations. And I actually got into the industry thanks to Angela Pye over here. She gave me my first job at Papa in Barkley. And then we met Angela Cheng, who then introduced me to Ophelia over here. And what I love about this is that the plant brought me this community of amazing, incredible women and people, and being able to find my Asian self through cannabis and discover this. And my whole life has changed because of it. Because of all of you here, I'm able to have my own business, Fruit and Flower Co. LLC, and it is about culinary cannabis and how it comes together in creative and often unexpected ways. So what I saw in the industry and the market while working with Angela Pye was that people were talking about cannabis and edibles, but it was just mostly sugar weed candy. And we weren't talking about it in a way that was really elevated. In my background and career, I spent 10 to 15, like over 15 years at this point. Wow, time flies. In restaurants, working with chefs and restaurateurs and promoting them here in Los Angeles and nationally. I grew restaurant companies, and I talked about it from a farm to fork perspective. And when I got into cannabis, I realized, I was like, wait, this is exactly the same thing. Why aren't we talking about it in this way? We live in this culture where we love food, but we don't talk about cannabis in the same way. And everybody has this bad edible experience. And if I can make these really beautiful desserts and cannabis food creations, food brings us all together, and we can use it to teach and educate about the power of the plant and the benefits, and to destigmatize it. And it's not just this thing that we use to party or get messed up and eat this edible that we remember we had a bad pot brownie at that party. Now it's really beautiful and elegant, and it's a gift, and it's something that's for yourself or you share with others.
Man, have we come a long way from Ziploc bags? It's like, I remember in 2015 going to a sesh and seeing these big ass cookies with a piece of paper that was stapled to this Ziploc bag, and I would ask, how much is in here? So, and I thought, got it. So we've come a long way from basically cookies that of unknown origin. Mm-hmm. So let's go to our birthday girl now, Angela Pye, who not only sports the most style, but also she is just, okay, if you ever are as lucky as we are to sit down to a meal that she makes, and she tells me the menu in Chinese, and she looks at me and she knows I can tell half the words she's saying, but I'm nodding right away because I heard the word chicken and I heard the word fish. So I thought, okay, I am so there. So if you ever have a chance to meet her, get her to make a meal for you, because it'll be something that you will remember for the rest of your life. So Angela, take it away.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for the birthday wishes. And I can't imagine spending my birthday with people I love more than you guys. And and how we've all come together in this cannabis community. But before I get there, I'll kind of do a little bit of background. I feel like I've had 3 careers. I wanted to be in the advertising agency industry since I was 16. And as soon as I graduated from university, that's what I did. So I was in the agency industry for about 2 decades, working across North America, so Canada, the US, in Europe, and also in Asia. My last job in Asia was running business development for Young and Rubicam from India to Indonesia. So I had like 11 countries. And I thought I was going to be in the agency world forever. Then I went into fashion. So I was at Halston. I was a chief marketing officer at Halston before I went into cannabis. And it's really because of Christina that I got into cannabis. We were having, I know I have to point the right way because the camera's weird. We were having breakfast one day and we'd just exited Halston. So I was between gigs and she's like, well, you know, what about cannabis? There's like this company called Papa and Barkley, and you should go and get that job so that you can hire me. And I'm like, but I don't know how to market cannabis. I've done a lot of consumer packaged goods. I worked on J&J. I've worked on Heinz, but I don't really know how to market cannabis. And she goes, you know, so many categories. Just go get the job and hired me. So that's exactly what I did. I got the job within 6 weeks and I hired her 4 weeks after that. And that's how we started our cannabis career. And what's amazing about the opportunity to go into the cannabis industry through wellness is that I grew up with traditional Chinese medicine as a child. So plant-based medicine and plant-based remedies are something that's really close to my heart and really well integrated into my whole wellness regime. And so just being able to apply that belief and the passion for plant medicine was something that was incredibly powerful coming into the industry. And then from Papa and Barkley going into a portfolio of brands at Cannacraft, and then now looking more into hospitality and retail. So it's a really interesting way to be able to develop a career within this industry. But I think more powerful than that, and in a very ironic way, I now have this incredible Asian family in an industry that is so stigmatized. So you think about, you know, a very traditional conservative type of sensibility in a so untraditional and very out there and in a way criminal type of industry, and how you bring it together, and then somehow you find your, you know, Asian family. So it is an incredible honor to have all these women who I call, you know, my friends, my dear friends, my family here. And, you know, even when Angela was the other Angela C, was thinking about leaving LA, and she was like, at one point, I think it was mentioned like a year ago, and she goes, but then I can't imagine leaving behind this incredible community of friends that we've developed. And even though we work in competitive companies, we find our way to be able to support and cheer each other on. And there's nothing more powerful because we're in a really, really tough industry.
Yeah.
I think that's also the power of what Ophelia brought, right? Ophelia brought all of us together, and she brings,
that's right,
through AACE, bringing together all of the Asians in cannabis. And now, right, like you inspired me to do that. So now when I go out to cannabis and I see somebody who looks like me, I'm like, hey, you, do I know you yet? And if I don't know you, hi, my name is Christina. Let me invite you into this thing. We're doing these cool things. Come to dinner. Angela's hosting something. And yeah, like this family that's grown has become really meaningful and powerful. And many of us who have a hard time with our own families, like we have each other. And right. And it's not just like it's personal, but then it's also professional. We talk about all these different things and we share what we know, and we share opportunities with each other. We amplify each other's brands. We find ways to find other Asians in the industry. And that is unlike anything I've ever experienced. I come from the food world and I had a great experience working there, but also this is special. And thank you, Ophelia, for creating that and inspiring all of us to do what we can.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
I couldn't agree more. And speaking of the connective tissue, Adam Grossman, who is the founder of Papa and Barkley, is a friend of mine. So I was in Boston visiting friends, and he invited me to his basement where I helped create, actually remade the balm that makes Papa and Barkley products so famous. So it's a very small industry, and at the same time, speaking of what Angela Pye just said, it is competitive. We have worked in competitive brands, but really it does feel like family. And again, thank you to Ophelia, because prior to you inviting me to speak about my experience on AACE, I had no idea that there were so many incredible Asian Americans and Asian American Pacific Islanders in cannabis. Not only are they in cannabis, but they're founders, they're CEOs, they're CMOs. They've actually led some of the top brands. So many of our other friends that are not on the show today come from Stizzy, come from Bloom, come from a lot of other brands. Sumo Snacks is another example where they're female leaders, and also male Asian American leaders that lead these incredible brands that a lot of us consume.
It's exactly because in cannabis, we call some people OGs who've been in the industry for a while. I call us the OAs. We're the original Asians. Yeah. So it's amazing how this community is created. But just listening to the three of you talk right now, just about your bios, which you had to condense. We could talk for hours about what all of you've done, but maybe this is a way I can do this, is that you've all mentioned that you came from somewhere else. I really want to give this to the women out there listening. How many careers have you had, and how did each career built onto the other to get you where you are? Because I started as hamburger at McDonald's, and I had to wear that costume and walk up and down and get kicked by kids. But I learned that marketing is me in a stupid costume walking back and forth and getting people to buy hamburgers. And so yeah, that's how I started my career at McDonald's. But Angela, let's talk about, this is questions for all three of you. How do you feel that all the careers that you have built has led to, and what those careers, what did they teach you to do now from that you didn't think you would ever use, all that learning for cannabis? Angela, Cheng, how would you talk about your careers and how that foundation was built?
I would say that I really started at the age of 8. So my mother actually is a designer. So I come from a non-traditional family in a very traditional environment. So even though we were taught in very, very Confucius manner of being raised, which is don't ever question anyone, respect your elders. I was actually somewhat outspoken as a child. And my mother is a now retired fashion designer, and my father's an artist. So I grew up watching my father paint and my mother designed clothes. And she would come into my room and ask, like, what do you think of this outfit? And I would say, no, go change, right? So I actually helped her open retail stores across Canada. I'm Canadian. And from there, just was always interested in being able to build and create things that are new. And from a marketing standpoint, I think that's really helped me, because I'm able to step back and take a look at the bigger picture of what's happening out in the space currently. And I think that's really helped in what I do. I ended up moving to New York at a fairly young age. I always wanted to live in New York. My mother took me there when I was a kid, and I immediately jumped on the subway as a child. And I remember taking the subway up to Central Park and seeing these men reading newspapers. And I thought they had so much freedom. So I grew up actually wanting to be a boy. I thought boys had far more freedom than girls did. And I said to myself, I want to live in New York one day. So I moved to New York. One of my first jobs, like Angela Pye, was actually in the ad agency space, which is at Publicis. And then the next job after that was at an experiential ad agency. So I oddly got put on all the celebrity accounts because I was the person that would stay up till midnight working. And we had a bar right outside my office. And everyone would, hang out and party. I mean, you're basically in New York as just out of college. So people were, really enjoying themselves. And I was too nervous to do so. I always felt like I had to show up the next day. So I ended up getting these amazing accounts and working with John Legend. I put him on tour with Bailey's Irish Cream. I was part of the early era that did the Diddy and Ciroc deal a long time ago. So this is Diageo way of brand building. And I learned a lot with Diageo as my main account. And from there, later on, I launched Jay-Z's brand, Douce Cognac at Bacardi. And I think all of those experiences of perseverance, working hard, but also being in entertainment helped get me to cannabis. And again, it is also, I always like to see what's next. So for me, I had a girlfriend who actually she's Asian. She created her own brand called Mother and Clone and moved to Colorado. And so she worked with me at the ad agency in New York. And I remember she sent out a pitch letter and said that she was going to be working in weed. And I thought, aha, that's the next avenue. And I think plant medicine is so much healthier for you than drinking, frankly. And so I flew myself out to Colorado and I visited her grow, which was an indoor grow at the time. And then I decided I identified top brands that I wanted to work with. And I wanted to be in California. That's where I thought the lead was. And at the time, there was MedMen, there was Papa and Barkley. That was one of the top brands I was super excited about. And there was Lowell Smokes. And so I met with all three and ended up working at Lowell Smokes. So that's really how I started in cannabis. Just kind of went after it. And from Lowell, I ended up working at 2 other large companies. And today I'm at Pacific Stone.
Wow. The thing is that you have a genius sense of how to put two things together, like what don't belong together, but you're going to put together, because your time machine product at Paxstone. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because yes, it's hilarious. So what was the thinking behind that?
Yeah. So obviously not created by myself. We have a huge, really, really amazing team. I feel very grateful that I'm at Pacific Stone today. It's a super humble organization, family owned and operated. We have not taken any outside funding, which is pretty incredible. As we all know, in cannabis today, it's a difficult environment. And I would say I always look at audience and segmentation. So Pacific Stone, which is this brand, is tried and true. For me, it's like 501 Levi's. It's almost like a pantry staple, right? We're not hype. We're not overly expensive. We're really just really good weed. And it's greenhouse grown, so it's sustainable. Just great weed. That's all it is. It's basically, I liken it to easygoing weed for hardworking people. That's Pacific Stone. And so because there is a regular contingent of consumers that are already familiar with the brand, how do we then create a new audience and a new awareness for that brand? And so Time Machine was born out of really the idea of really going after the gaming audience. So gaming, comic books, right? Zillennial. I call them Zillennials. It's a mix between millennial and Generation Z. And that audience is looking for something fun and irreverent. So what we did was instead of creating Pacific Stone Smalls, we created a new brand called Time Machine. And it's really a Smalls brand, very affordable for your everyday. But I get to do lots of fun things with it, including launching an NFT, going after a completely different audience. And we're having a lot of fun with it. We just launched, I would say, about a month ago, and we're already in 150 dispensaries in the state of California. Pacific Stone is in over 600. So it's a big number, and we have an incredibly small team that is just going after it. It's been a lot of fun.
It's amazing because I remember we were texting back and forth, and I said I'm in my hot tub. This is a few months ago, and you went, "Oh my God, that's the Time Machine!" And then I thought, "Oh, she's onto something. She's doing something. She'll tell me later."
Yeah, I'm listening to you, and I'm like, I need to introduce you to someone who can perfectly reach your audience. We'll talk on Sunday.
All right.
This was like, right. I'm like listening to you and I was like, oh, like I need to introduce you to this person. And that's the power of what Ophelia has created and what we do for each other as women, as Asians, as Asian women in this space. That, right. Like I hear someone doing something really cool and I'm like, I know someone that would really love this. How do I connect them? And like, we're connectors, we introduce each other, and that's how opportunities happen. And I wouldn't be sitting where I am without all the opportunities of the Angelas and Ophelia and all the others in AACE and Potluck thinking.
Let's get into the question, Christina. How did all your past careers build this foundation to where you are now? I mean, it is because most people think
brilliant.
Because when we look at our parents, more traditional parents, I had a father who was a 9-to-5 civil engineer. That's it. He did for about 40 years. But now we have changed. So Christina, let's hear about how all those careers you built on top of that has brought to where you are now.
For sure. And, I grew up in a very traditional, like everything's very safe, right? Immigrant family, immigrant parents, where it's like, You get your corporate job, you work your 9 to 5, you get your paycheck, you get your 401k, you get your health benefits, and like life is easy street.
And then you die.
And then you die, and whatever. You have your family, all those things. And it, and I did that, and I loved it. And I was very fortunate to work for companies and agencies that had amazing culture. So I spent about a decade of my life working with a restaurant company called Tender Greens, and they were all about farm to fork. It's this healthy, sustainable meats and seafood and organically, regeneratively grown produce. And we got to know the farmers who grew the food. And so through all of that, and I was their head of PR, marketing, brand, and everything. When I met them, they had three locations here in Los Angeles and California. And I grew them into a national brand, opened their restaurant in New York, took them through an investment deal with Danny Meyer, got to meet him and all of those. And so that was an incredible experience. But, before that, how did I get into food? And like, it all comes back. So one of my first jobs in college, I was a hostess at a restaurant on the waterfront in Georgetown in Washington, D.C. So I went to college in D.C., and I just wanted to get a job because I wanted to make pocket money to spend and not have to feel obligated to like ask my parents for money or feel like I didn't have money. And so I got this job as a hostess. I was making $10 an hour, and I thought it was so much at the time. I was balling. And it was my first taste of what restaurant life was. And I fell in love, honestly. Like the chef's name was Chef Wee Oi Porn, and he was Thai, and he made beautiful food. And I would spend, sometimes when the restaurant was slow, I'd spend time in the kitchen hanging out with him and the kitchen crew, and they teach me about food. And that's how I fell in love with eating out at restaurants and food and hospitality. And then that led me into my career of being a publicist for restaurants and chefs and food brands. So then I worked at agencies, which led me into Tender Greens. And at Tender Greens, when I started learning about where our food comes from and teaching other people why that's important, because we grew up in this world of fast food and we're just kind of eating and not being mindful or conscious about it. And at Tender Greens, it was really about caring about where your food comes from. And now that conversation has changed so much in the last 20 years, right? Now we go to Whole Foods, we care about, and our consumers care. And so these pictures behind me are actually inspired by them. It was at the restaurants, but working there made me a better person. And that culture of the type of company I wanted to work for is what brought me to Papa and Barkley and Angela, because I wanted to, I left Tender Greens abruptly. There was a lot of changes. That's what happens. It's all good. But then I was left being like, well, who am I if I'm not my job? And I meant to take a summer off, and then I took a whole year and a half off, and I traveled around the world, and I got to see friends and rethink about and dream new dreams and think about what I wanted to do. And I landed on, I wanted to get into the cannabis industry because I really like startups. I like working with entrepreneurs. I like growing these things. And so that was the bridge that brought me into cannabis. And once I got there, I loved it. It was thrilling. I learned so much. And everything that I learned from how to grow your food and talking to the farmers and walking their fields with them and understanding my pig farmer, all of a sudden that was the exact same thing in cannabis with growers and cultivators. But when I was talking to the cultivators and growers in cannabis, they were using a lot of slang and different words that I was like, I don't understand what you're talking about. What are terps? What are this? What's that? And I was sitting there, I think I was listening to them, and my face was like, and I was like, oh, I know what you're saying. I understand. And so now I get to use all that experience from Tender Greens and food to translate kind of what cannabis is to consumers who love food. And that to me is culinary cannabis. It's how do you appreciate your cannabis in the same way that you love and appreciate your food? And all the way back to that first restaurant job, because I fell in love with food and because I started following it and learning about it, now I get to use my platform to teach and tell stories. My background's in PR. So ultimately, it's all about storytelling. It's pitching, it's relationships, it's connections. I'm now a baker. I do too many things, but that's what I love about this industry. I started off taking my skill set from one industry into this one. And then now all the possibilities opened. I started using a lot more. My creativity opened up. And now I do way too many things. I'm a writer, I'm a baker, I still do PR, I'm a partner in a culinary cannabis magazine, I consult, and it's really fun and it's really freeing. It scares my parents who come from this traditional background and they're like, what do you mean you don't have a 9-to-5 job and like you don't have a 401k? But I have complete freedom to create and build whatever I want, and having this group here makes that feel so much safer.
That's great. That's amazing, because you've taken all those skills and coming in completely blind into cannabis. And also the thing is that what we're trying to do is change the verbiage. It is, when we say drug, it brings all these connotations to it, because that's what that word was slapped onto. So now that we're hearing you all saying plant medicine, terps, we are bringing back what the original meaning of this plant. And so, Angela, hi. Oh my word. Your career arc is, we heard a little bit about it, but can you tell us what was the skill that you learned that really helped you navigate cannabis into, like, coming right into it from Halston? It's so wide apart, but what was the most important skill that you brought from that world into cannabis?
There's quite a lot, but I'm going to go back a little bit, which will take us back to the very beginning. So my very first job out of college was working for an agency called Young & Rubicam, which is part of WPP, a big holding company of communications. The brand that I worked on was for the Ford Motor Company. At that time, it was the biggest account at Y&R. And I know Angela Cheng and I are in lockstep on the idea about how it's important to have strategy, the importance of strategy, the importance of planning, the importance of understanding what your consumer segments are, what are the insights that you can gather, how can you develop a relevant and differentiated brand. So I think the foundations of really understand the core aspect of the discipline of marketing and bringing that into cannabis. I mean, from Halston, which is a premium lifestyle brand within apparel, where a minimum cart size is like $300. It's a very different type of category than looking at cannabis. But then if you dissect it and you look at, well, who are your consumers? What are they looking for? What are they buying it for? And how are they going to use it? Then you then take that tenet of trying to be able to formulate who you're designing for, what do they want, how are they using it, and it really goes back to the understanding of consumer insights. So I know Christina will attest, one of the first questions I ask before we ever launch or create anything is, who are we designing for? If you don't nail down that who, it's very difficult to really come up with a plan that you can follow, because some people will say, well, we want everybody. Well, you know what? You're not going to get everybody. And if you go after everybody, you're basically, it's a drop in the ocean, and you might as well just have a really great party, because that's going to be an absolute waste of time and resources. So having the discipline to hone in on who you're trying to reach, learn everything about that segment of consumer, and develop something that they're really going to care about. So I think those are probably the most important skills. But directly from Halston, we did a lot of photo shoots. We had to create a lot of content. So the importance of being able to create relevant content that actually helps to grow your audience to something, and having a great network of creatives going into cannabis was very useful, because a lot of times you're really pulling in your network of resources because you're trying to just make things happen with not a lot of money.
Right.
And so you are calling in favors, you're calling in people within your network who you can lean on and know that they can deliver for you. And I've been able to work with a lot of really wonderful people who are truly talented from outside of cannabis and brought them into cannabis. So, this side with Gem+Jane, I was able to work with a wonderful designer who I worked with for quite some years, launching a brand of caviar, and then also at Halston. And she and I worked on the designs for Gem+Jane. So very, very grateful to be able to have wonderfully talented people who are interested and excited about this industry and willing to, I guess, jump on the train with us.
Oh, I just wanted to have a few words about, because I'm so proud of you with Gem+Jane. Can you just give us a little bit of why did you create that?
Well, I'm data led. So again, you guys will smile at me because I love data. Data tells you a lot of things, and then you can extrapolate and decide on what you want to do. What we know about the cannabis or infused cannabis beverage industry, or the segment, is that women are overrepresented across every single demographic. And yet there are really not that many beverages within our category, or at least within the state of California, that's really created and designed specifically for a female audience. So we went out to create a brand just for her. We wanted her to feel that she can take, a Gem+Jane, which looks very normal and it's very sparkly, and it's an homage to how women are brilliant from the inside out, like gemstones. And that's why all the cans are very, very, very shiny. And the Jane part, obviously, because it's a nod to the cannabis. Or you can think of it as, your daytime girl and your nighttime girl, and the different facets of our personality, because we are multifaceted. So designing for this audience, we wanted to make sure that we are using such an opportunity to be able to grow the industry. Because I think, for us who've been in this industry for a number of years now, the opportunity isn't trying to speak to the same people. The opportunity is, how can we continue to normalize cannabis in a way that brings new consumers into the cannabis industry? And I quoted this a number of times. Based off of Headset of 2021, what they said was the industry did grow, but it grew not because we brought in a lot of new consumers into the industry. We grew because existing consumers basically consumed more. To me, that made me very sad, because, okay, I guess we have to continue to work harder. But all of us, we need to grow the industry and to bring new people in to show them how cannabis can help them feel better or enjoy a wind down day or go out and have a great social time, and look at ways in which cannabis can be a part of that. So, I do see it as part of our mission to really go out and educate and bring more people into the category.
Yeah.
That's amazing, because what I'm going to ask one question, since this is AAPI Heritage Month, or honoring, well, anyways, it's just talking about us. And so reason I created Asian Americans for Cannabis Education was that when I first started, there wasn't very many of me. And so I wanted to have more of us in there. So by creating that website, I was trying to educate and bring more people in. But now, looking at it some years later, I can throw a rock and hit at least 10 of us now. And so, and 2 of them I don't know, so I'm going to bring them in. How, Angela Cheng, this is a question for everyone too. We'll start with Angela. What is it about the API community was so hesitant to come in, but now, like I said, with at the Emerald Cup that you and I were with, we saw Potley win, Mad Lily, Elefante, Feeling Frosty, and Pure Beauty, all these companies run by Asian women. What do you think? Where do you think the switch, when did the switch turn on? Angela Cheng, you start.
I actually think that, I have an interesting story. My mother called me when I was in high school. So she had rented out the house I grew up in. And she has my mother doesn't speak English. It's her second language. So she still has a heavy accent. I remember she called very, very upset and said, there's bad drug people in our house. I was like, what are you talking about? So someone had taken over our house. So I'm come from the home of BC Bud in Vancouver, Canada, and they had turned it into an indoor grow. So she was very, very upset over it, and obviously thought, cannabis and the world surrounding it is bad drug people, that negative connotation. Now, many years later, very recently, she left me a voice message and said that she was really proud of me, and it made me kind of teary eyed because it's very hard to please Asian parents. And I would say that, to answer your question, Ophelia, is that immigrants in general, and I'm not just speaking for Asian Americans, but immigrants, all immigrants that come to America, actually have a motivation to create their own destiny, right? And so I think that part of the reason why there's so many Asian Americans now are in cannabis, it is a new and nascent industry. It's very, very new. If you think about it, it's not legal federally. There's still a lot of rules and regulations that have not yet been formulated. So it's kind of like the era of someone coming to the US to, not able to find a job, a traditional job, and having to open a restaurant or a dry cleaner or that first iteration of it. And there is an opportunity in cannabis to create something new, to write the rule book. And I think that's appealing to a lot of immigrants and appealing to Asian Americans that don't mind that hard work and the journey that goes into doing, what we do, because it is a challenge. There's a lot of things as a marketer where it's, and Angela Pai can attest to this, where it's difficult, where, for example, she looks at data and the data says this, and then you launch it and you're like, well, wait, actually, as it turns out, it's the consumer that smokes every day or that's drinking every day, or we don't think about the retail experience and how most consumers still have to walk into a dispensary to purchase product. So there's a lot of other marketing challenges that occur even if you have a genius product. So I think that's part of what is appealing. It's certainly what is appealing to me, is that opportunity to create something new. And having spent a lot of time in liquor advertising and marketing, which is actually not dissimilar to cannabis marketing. If you think about how we encourage consumers to consider a product, a lot of it starts at the trade level. And that is about encouraging and also educating our bud tenders. So because I worked in liquor for many years, my expertise is really trade advocacy and ensuring bartenders were familiar with that product. So I designed programs to get bartenders to recommend a specific product. And in cannabis, your consumer still has to walk into a dispensary to purchase product. So you got to think about how we're influencing bud tenders to recommend a specific product. And I think, all of those things combined have made it, for me, why I want to be in cannabis, because you have that opportunity to create something new.
Amazing. Christina, when do you think the tide for Asians turned on for cannabis, and why?
I mean, I think it was pandemic in the last couple of years was a big shift. I think people reevaluating what work they do, what kind of work they do, the impact that they have, and how they want to move forward. I think the work that you've done, Ophelia, has been huge, because when we step in and you're like, well, there's nobody else who looks like me, and now we get to step in and like, oh, look, there's a whole community of people. But also, I think Angela and I, we had a whole marketing team that was significantly Asian, and that was really exciting to see all these really, and yet we're so underrepresented in the industry. But we're there. And something I noticed too through another friend is that a lot of I definitely felt growing up that I was a little bit of the black sheep Asian. I never quite fit in right. I didn't fit in well. Like, I didn't ascribe to the stereotypical, I got all the good grades and did all the things, but like, it just never felt comfortable. And so there's a joke in my family that like, I'm the bad one, or I'm the black sheep. And like, my cousin's the good one because she got all the trophies and she did the piano lessons and she went to Stanford and did all that. And I took it, I had a different path. And, I remember my dad being like, what are you doing majoring in English? You need to get something, you need to major in something useful, like international business. And I was like, okay, Dad. I'm like, I'm going to go be a hostess at this restaurant and be a bartender for a second. This is fun. And they were just like, what are you doing? But it led to this. And it leads to me being able to advocate and educate And also, I think having a new array of products available to try, because even for me, I was around cannabis, but I didn't know a lot about it. There wasn't a lot of education, and I didn't smoke, I didn't dab, and all of those things seemed really intimidating. And once I learned and saw that there was all these other products, that it wasn't about getting fucked up. It was about wellness. It's about feeling better, right? Products like a Gem+Jane it's just a little bit, it fits into your lifestyle. People don't even know how to use it yet. And so by having something like a balm, the Papa and Barkley balms and the topicals, that has opened up so many conversations and so many doors. Angela and I did a Clio Cannabis award-winning campaign that was called Lives Changed, and we focused on short videos, testimonials of people whose lives were changed by cannabis. And one I'll remember forever. It was this woman named Kristen, and Christelle, and her mother was going through chemotherapy. And she had been a cannabis user. She was like younger, and it was just there, but it was still a stigma with her mom. And her mom was always like, no. But then the side effects from the chemotherapy were so intense, and she couldn't stand the pain. And finally, one day, her mom was like, okay, give me some of this balm that you've been talking about. And she tried it, and it worked. And so now her mom and her can talk about that. And her mom is the biggest advocate. Like, she tells everybody and gives it to all the aunties. And I get to start to have this kind of conversation with my parents, right? I told them, like, hey, so I got a new job. It's in the cannabis industry. And I'm explaining them what it is. And I say, oh, it's like Tiger Balm. It's plant medicine. It has all these different things. And they're like, oh, okay. My mom's willing to try it. So now she tried it. She was like, oh, it works. And I saw my dad over Mother's Day weekend. And he's so funny. He comes to me and he's like, so are you still selling the marijuana? I was like, what are you asking me?
What kind of marijuana?
Do you have any, the balm or patches? And I was like, I don't have any on me, but I can make you some.
First taste is free, Christina.
Then it was so huge because 6 months ago, I told my dad that I was growing a few plants in my yard, and he was convinced the police were going to come, knock down my door, throw me in jail, and tear up my plants and take everything away. And then now he's like, do you have this? It could help me. And our fellow in AAPI and Cannabis, Eunice Kim of Hi-Vi and Sisimone, created this incredible cannabis education booklet and translated it into 12 different languages. And I was able to then take this book, and I just sent it to my parents, and I said, hey, here's what I do, here's what cannabis is, and here's the science of how it works. And it's translated into Mandarin Chinese. Dad was asking how this explains how it works. So thanks to that, thanks to everybody here, I have the courage to open up a conversation with my parents. They probably don't know as much as how much I use, but at least it's a start. And now that they're asking me, and I think the type of products is important. It's, even though, right, vapes, flower, and concentrates are the top seller, that's not what's going to push this industry forward. Because think about how many people don't know about the benefits of cannabis in the plant and don't have access to it yet. And so many people I talk to, they ask me, I want to try this, but I don't know what to do. I'm scared. I'm confused. There's too many choices. And by giving them the thing that fits in their life, there it is.
Exactly. So we're running out of time soon. So Angela, hi, would you I forgot what the question was. What turned on the switch for Asian Americans?
Wow. I was born in Canada, so I guess I'm considered second generation, right? And not first generation. But what I do see about our community is how hardworking we are. And how disciplined we are when we're focused on something. And as you know, all of us are so dedicated, and we grind so hard, and we work so hard. And when we see the opportunity within this nascent industry, like Angela Cheng was saying, I think we see the opportunity of discipline of the industry that's growing very rapidly, of still being undefined. And we see that when we come together as a group, there are so many things that we can create and to be innovative and to be able to rely and lean on one another. So I think what turns it on for us is that the opportunity, the space between opportunity and dedication narrows when you're working within an industry that's rapidly evolving. So we see Asian in all aspects of cannabis. So whether it's from cultivation, manufacturing, hardware, distribution, events, retail. So all of us within this community, there's an Asian in there. And for us, I really think it's the opportunity of being able to bring it all together for us. And the more of these types of events, Ophelia, that you create with AACE, with Potluck, when we've got over 100 people gathered every few months and learn and introduce and make friendships, the faster it's going to accelerate.
Because doors open, like because of the potluck events that you created, Ophelia, doors opened, and the answer is yes, right? Like brands or companies that I would have dreamed to work with, would have dreamed to be introduced to. Now I just have to say, hi, I'm, met you at Potluck. The answer is yes. How can I help? And that's powerful, and that's incredible, and that's the power of connections and relationships. And I think that's what AACE has brought together. And being women in the industry is also very hard. There's an incredible network there too. I mean, this is also about Women Grow, and seeing the women in this space, they're really powerful. And I watch the women get tired of, struggling so hard in the industry. And that's also the people who come into the cannabis industry want to do great things. And then when they get frustrated, they spin off and start their own. And that's really cool, because then they uplift and bring other women with them. We support each other. And that's where the power is of how we can be better and improve the industry as well.
Thank you for that. And so, okay, let me just go off a little bit off script here with the, we're always going off script here. Being Asians, you got to pivot real fast. So basically all newbies have a story. Right. You go into anything, the newbie's going to have a story. My first marathon, my first my first pregnancy, my first divorce, or my first car, my first job. So normally the story that we hear all the time is, man, did I ever have an edible there? Oh God, I got, like this, right? And so what was your experience, your first fuzzballs, what did I just do experience with cannabis? Let's start with Christina, since you're the one feeding people and you're seeing the effects of your food. Amazing effects though.
So that's my line. I say, when I tell people what I do and I'm like, what I bake, and they're like, oh, and everyone's like, oh, I had that bad pot brownie at a party. Like, yo, I know, I know, I've been there, but you shouldn't be scared. And here's why. Let me teach you. But so my first experience, I was 16 and my friends gave me a huge bong rip, and I didn't know shit about shit. I still don't really know. I didn't know shit about shit until recently, to be quite honest with you. But I did this huge bong rip, and I ended up barfing for 4 hours. I was a fountain. It was bad. And I didn't know what to do. I was just on the floor of the bathroom, trying not to die. And my mom's worried because I haven't come home. And so that actually caused me to not try cannabis or use it or do anything for about 15, 20 years or so. I was very hesitant to go back. And now I know a lot more. I have safe access. I've still gotten real messed up. I had some Delta 8 from a bakery. I had a drink and a cookie that was just dosed way too high. And I ended up barfing in front of my friends' kids. And this was a year ago. So it's still pretty recent. And I think knowing that, right, there's knowing your dose is really important with edibles. And that's why when I talk about what I do and I advocate, I only make low dose unless someone specifically asks and I know they can handle it, because I just think high dose products in the market, people don't know. Like my friend who's a photographer, he just showed me a picture. He bought some like little tablets of THC and CBD. It was a 1-to-1. And he's like, oh, I gave some to my dad. He's never had it before. And I'm like looking at the picture and I'm like, that says 14 milligrams a pill. Like, I'm like, give him like a third or like half at least. But right, no one's telling them that. That's the piece that's missing. And so that's still the part I think that will deter people, because they're scared. They've had a bad experience and they don't want to repeat it.
Oh my gosh, that is almost a lead into our two marketers. Oh, sorry, this way here. So Angela Cheng, tell us about what an experience you had, but also you can sort of tack on to that. What is the education part that Christina's talking about, that when you market your products?
Yeah, I think knowing your dose is very important. The first time I tried cannabis was actually in Amsterdam at age 23. And I was with my girlfriend. We walked into a coffee place, a lounge, and I inhaled. But because I don't know how to smoke, I don't think I inhaled properly. I ended up just coughing. And the next time I tried cannabis was actually in Los Angeles. I was at the Hollywood Bowl. I had cracked open wild edibles, and I love candy. So for all of those that know me, I literally have snacks here at my desk. So I'm always eating candy. And so I took 2 edibles without reading it, which is 20 milligrams. So wild is actually 1 edible. And so nothing happened to me short of I was very, very hungry. And I went to In-N-Out immediately following the show and ordered 2 In-N-Out burgers, 2 fries, and 2 shakes, and ate all of it. Then I went home and made ramen because I was craving noodles. So just don't do that. Make sure you read the instructions. And I think that's part of the reason why I actually do like to smoke pre-rolls, because when you're smoking, you can control the dosage. Obviously, in the regulated market, when you buy an edible, it's all just, you can see it's 2.5 milligrams or 5 milligrams or 10. But I do like actually smoking. And smoking my own flower, because I can control the dosage. I know that 1 or 2 puffs is all I need.
There's people on. Go ahead, Christina.
You don't even know what the dose means, right? If like, I remember being new in this industry when I started with Angela, and like, everyone's like, what's your dose? I was like, I don't know. Like, what's 5? I don't know how that feels. And so like in the industry, we're marketing with these terms that nobody knows. People don't understand what it means. So like translating that is the key.
Yeah. I bet there's a market for you on OnlyFans eating In-N-Out burgers. So it's like you can just eat In-N-Out burgers all day and you make bank.
It's a mukbang, right? The videos where you're eating.
It's a mukbang. So Angela Pie, we're going to be closing soon, but what was your experience in cannabis? Your
very first
that stood out. Well, not one that stood out, but also too, you are bringing this marketing of dosing with your products like Gem+Jane. So tell us about your experience with cannabis. A good one that you want to tell us about.
I'll go back to the first one, which is, you never forget your first, right? So I was in the senior year of college. I was an orientation leader, and the night before the whole orientation starts, all of us get together. There's, in Canada, cannabis comes hash, right? Mm-hmm. So you get like this brick hash. I remember sitting on a sofa for 3 hours with couch lock and going, this is so dumb. It is so dumb, because I'm totally coherent. I can think, I can see, I can talk, but I cannot move. I cannot move. I couldn't move. And I was having coherent conversations with my friends going, this is really fucked up, because I'm just staring at my hands. I'm talking to you guys, but I cannot get up.
We've all had that. That's hilarious.
So I think that's a really great segue into this whole dosing conversation. That, let's just go low and slow and see how it affects you. I do think there's a huge segment for 1 milligram gummies and 1 milligram edibles that people haven't really started kind of getting into now. There are probably only a couple of brands that are doing, 1 to 2 milligram edibles. I think that's a great market to go into because it's like your introductory, takes the edge off. There's nothing scary. And it's not going to hit you. And I think, again, in terms of growing the category, when you want somebody to have their first experience, you don't want them to have an intimidating or an adverse experience because they'll be turned off forever. So again, let's go low and slow, something that's going to be fun. And then they'll have a few giggles and maybe eat 1 and not 3 or 2 in and out. And just makes them happy and giggle.
My favorite question, Angela, one of your experiences was like, it felt like you were wearing white mittens.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we were trying out edibles when Papa Barkley was developing its formulation for gummies, and we were doing, we had to do a lot of market tests, right? And I decided to take, I think it was like only a 5 milligram gummy. And then I went home, had a really nice bubble bath. And then all of my hands, they felt like all the little sensors were wearing white mittens. So I was like texting people, including Christina, and going, my hands and all of the sensors are wearing white mittens. White mittens. And they're all waving at me.
Wow. I want that edible now. But the easiest way I explain edibles to people is, do you remember X-Lax chocolates? Right?
Oh, God.
Okay, it's a chocolate. But the thing is, though, in your brain, you know not to eat the whole bar because you know what's going to happen. So when I explain that as in parallel to cannabis edibles, it is, if you eat this whole bag, something's going to happen to you. And if you eat this whole X-Lax bar, you know what's going to happen to you. So manage your dosing. And so I just want to, before we go, I would like each of you to give just what advice you would give to a woman, Asian, BIPOC, everything, a woman, advice into coming into the cannabis industry. Angela Cheng, you start first since you're at the top there.
I'd say be curious and ask a lot of questions. For me, it's always be learning. Don't be afraid to ask questions. We're all here to help. And I think the other thing is women try to do too much. We're all known as sort of superpower, right? We're some of us are moms, and then we have a full-time job, and then we have to look a certain way, and we cook and we clean, and there's just, it's okay to ask for help. And I think it's totally, I think that part is super important, is in terms of always wanting to learn and knowing when to ask for help.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Christina.
I would say, don't be afraid to speak up and make sure your voice is heard. And if you're not being heard, or people are not listening or respecting what you have to say, don't be afraid to walk away. Because I think we're so afraid to walk away from, for me anyways, the safety net. And I remember when I told, Angela will attest, that when I told her, I was like, hey, I'm quitting my job. I'm going to go do my baking blog thing. And she was like, I thought that was the stupidest thing I have ever heard. But like, it works. And I think taking a leap of faith and knowing yourself, knowing that there's opportunity in the industry. I don't know, don't take no one's shit.
Yeah. Well, Christina, you are that person. You don't take it. I'm always so in admiration of your fortitude. Mm-hmm. And when I think of, some people classify people as type A, I say it's type Asian, and we're type Asian. And Christina, you're my type A. So Angela, hi, what would be your words of wisdom to women entering the cannabis industry?
Know your worth.
Oh my gosh, so succinct. You're like the Buddha of quotes there. It's amazing. And one last thing I want to do is, you guys all have a lighter, Angela Cheng and Fruit and Flower, Christina there. Also, while they're finding a lighter, you can find all of us with our Instagram tags that we have there. Let's sing Angela, happy birthday.
I don't have a lighter.
I have a lighter from Elevate Jane.
I don't have a lighter. I'll just pretend we're lighting a joint. How's that?
I have a lighter from Sherbinsky's. Okay. All right. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Angela Pie.
Happy
Happy
birthday.
birthday to you. And many more. Woo! Woo!
Yay!
I
Thank
want
you
to thank
so much.
Sonia Frylock.
I'm so happy everyone's here. On our page right here, you can see where you can, because there's a couple comments of where can we find you. Our Instagram tags are there, so follow these wonderful women. And Fruit and Flower, I guarantee you're going to be licking your screen. And we'll remember Angela Cheng with In and Out. OnlyFans, I'm telling you, girl, you can make money. You can get another Porsche. And Angela Pie, your path, you're blazing the path for all of us to follow. And every time I listen to you, I learn something. And that is the greatest gift that all three of you women have given us in our community, is that you have given us your knowledge and your openness to help us all. And I want to thank you. And I want to thank Women Grow. I want to thank Gia. And I want to thank Tanya for having us on here to celebrate being type A and just sharing our experiences. So thank you, everyone. And I appreciate you all.
Thank you so much, Ophelia.
Thank you, Ophelia. Thank you, Women Grow.
Thank you, Women Grow.